You know, there's a hidden clock ticking away inside all of us, and I'm not talking about the one you think. When we're dealing with toxins and radiation, understanding this biological timer can literally be the difference between life and death. So today, we're diving into this crucial concept, biological half-life. So let's just ask the big question right up front. When you're exposed to some kind of toxin, how long does it really hang around in your body? It sounds like a simple question, right? But the answer is, well, it's surprisingly complicated. We hear a lot about how long radioactive stuff stays dangerous out in the world. But the much more personal question is, once it gets inside you, how long does your body hold on to it? To get to that answer, you have to realize that we're not just dealing with one clock. Oh no. When a radioactive substance gets into your body, there are actually two completely different clocks ticking down at the same time, and it's how they interact that determines the real danger. Okay, so on one side, you've got the physical half-life. This is all about the atom itself, its basic stability. But on the other side, there's the biological half-life, which has nothing to do with physics and has everything to do with your body's own internal cleaning crew. Let's break that down.
The physical half-life, man, this thing operates on a scale that is almost impossible to imagine. It's a fundamental property of an element. For something like uranium-238, the half-life is 4.5 billion years. It's a fixed, predictable countdown. You can't speed it up, you can't slow it down, it just is.
Now, the biological clock, it's a completely different beast. The biological half-life isn't about an atom decaying. It's about how long it takes your body to get rid of half of a substance through its natural processes, excretion. And unlike that fixed physical clock, this one is all over the place. For some chemicals, especially heavy metals, this cleanup process can be incredibly painfully slow.
And that's where the real risk to our health comes from. It's not about one clock or the other just on its own. It's the dangerous combination of both of them working at the same time inside your body. This brings us to a really key term, the effective half-life. This is the number that truly matters. This is what toxicologists look at because it combines the atom's own decay rate with your body's removal rate. It gives us the actual duration of the threat inside a person.
Here's the best way to picture it. Let's say an isotope decays pretty quickly. It has a short physical half-life. Sounds good, right? Well, not so fast. If your body has no efficient way to get rid of it, its biological half-life is going to be very long. So what's the result? That rapidly decaying element is now trapped inside you, doing all of its damage directly to your cells and tissues. Your body's basically holding the poison in place.
Okay, let's make this really concrete. We're going to look at two dangerous heavy metals that come from the decay of uranium. You're about to see just how this plays out with absolutely devastating effects.
Check this out. So you have uranium, which primarily acts as a chemical toxin, and it goes straight for the kidneys. But then you have radium. Radium is dangerous because of its intense radioactivity, and it has a very, very specific target, your bones.
And that leads to a huge question. Why the bones? I mean, it's not a random attack. The answer is in this fascinating and frankly terrifying little bit of biochemistry where your body actually gets tricked.
It's this phenomenon called molecular mimicry. So if you remember the periodic table from school, radium sits directly below calcium. To your body's biological machinery, they look almost identical. So when you ingest radium, your body makes a fatal error. It thinks it's calcium, and it uses that radium to build and repair your bones. It literally becomes a permanent part of your skeleton, which is how it earned the sinister nickname, the Bone Seeker. So now let's connect all this science to the lived experience. For uranium miners and their communities, this wasn't about a single, massive exposure. It was about a slow, constant poisoning, all made possible by that long, stubborn biological half-life. This one sentence. It just says so much, doesn't it? In the heat of their work, miners drank the water that was available, water that was seeping through rock that was rich with these elements. It was a daily dose of poison. But the exposure didn't just end with their shift. That radioactive dust was all over their clothes, their skin, their hair. They brought it home with them every single night, and without knowing it, they exposed their families, day after day for decades. That is the very definition of chronic exposure. This is the brutal reality of a long biological half-life. The body doesn't just get rid of these heavy metals, it holds onto them. Radium gets locked into the bone matrix, and the damage just keeps accumulating, a little more each and every day. And maybe the most important thing to understand is that radiation damage is cumulative.
A small dose today doesn't just disappear, it adds to the dose from yesterday and the day before that. And over a 20-year career, these small daily insults add up to a massive, overwhelming amount of cellular damage.
And this brings us to our final thought. The science here is crystal clear. The combination of radioactive decay and biological retention leads to a lifetime of damage, and that forces us to ask a larger, much more difficult question. When the body itself becomes a long-term prison for poison, what does justice even look like?